Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's been a minute since I uploaded. Honestly, I had trouble remembering when's the last time I uploaded, to be honest, but then I remembered I did Hatvember, Hat November, so it hasn't been too long. It's only been a month. So, you know, we're still consistent-ish because it's December now. So, you know, we're going a video a month, apparently. So today I am here to review everything that I've crocheted in the year of 2023. It's not technically a full year as I only started crocheting in May. So it's only May to December, 7 months worth of things, but it's a lot in these 7 months, and it's going to be really interesting going through everything, seeing what it is that I made. I had already put all of them into a basket, and it sort of felt like I was putting together a time capsule and just being like, oh yeah, I remember when I meant this, and just remembering the different memories I had associated with each one. And yeah, I've been watching a lot of these as of late, and I am looking forward to hopping on the bandwagon and making one myself. So let's get into it. All right, I have this basket full of all of my makes, plus another one on the floor that is separate for a very good reason. And we're just gonna talk about each one. It feels very full circle to put all my makes in here because I've had this basket for many, many years. And back when I was a knitter in like elementary school, I had kept my yarn in here. And I don't know, it just makes me all warm and fuzzy inside. So I feel like the most logical thing to do would be to start with what's on my head. I consider this hat, if I was a hat, like me in hat form, and that we have the different purples, we have the granny stitch going on. I really love granny stitches. And we also have a very subtle ruffle, and I just love the hat a lot. And I don't wear it as much as I should, but it's definitely one of my favorite things I made this year. I love it a lot. All right, so moving into Miss Basket here. First up, we have this granny stitch, again, with the granny stitch. I made this in November. This was sort of like my fall break, time off work project that I made. I really like it a lot. It was a good stash busting project. And I really like berets. I hope to make another one sometime soon. Maybe not necessarily granny stitch, but a beret. So I'm just gonna... All right, up next we have my first ever, I guess, apparel. Well, all of these are technically wearable, so I'm just gonna call this apparel. This is a SHRUG, BOLERO, however you want to call it. This is, it's something. I really wanted to try and make one, but I really underestimated how much time it would take me to make it, especially once I got to the sleeves. I was just like, I can't wait for this to be over. And as you can see, I somehow made the stitches more tighter on the sleeves compared to the front part. And I really tried to convince myself that I was okay with that, but I'm really not. I haven't really worn this, to be honest. Like, I wore this once to New York to see Jungkook of BTS perform in Central Park, and I haven't worn it since. And you can really tell this was my first time making an apparel piece, because not only do you have like the stitch differences, but the sleeves are not the same length, and one is more like flared. It's a lot, but I just don't really have the heart to frog and make something else, because it's like a good keepsake to show, you know, this is where I was and this is where I am now, sort of thing. It's nice to look back on and the memories that I have associated with it in going to see Jungkook performed. That was my first ever in-person BTS concert, and so when I look at this, that's what I think of, that memory. So yeah. Okay, up next we have this sandy scrunchie. This was my first ever pattern test for knottyfiberz on Instagram. Sandy Liang has, I don't know how long Sandy Liang's been around, but I feel like in this year in particular, Sandy Liang was pretty popular, the brand. And so recreations, whether it be sewing Sandy Liang scrunchies or in this case crochet, was very common. And so when I saw B had posted this on their Instagram page, I was like, I gotta test this, and I'm so happy they picked me to be a pattern tester. This is also something I feel like I don't wear enough, and I definitely should, but the issue is that with like my locks, they're layered, and so I can't quite exactly put them in a ponytail, but I can do like a sort of top knot sort of thing. And so yeah, I really like this. I really do. Next up, we have actually my first ever hat. It's this, I was gonna say gingham, but it's checkerboard. This was my first time working with like two colors at once, and you can tell that it was my first time working with two colors at once because when you flip it on the inside, you'll see that I didn't carry my yarn over when I was switching colors. And you know, this is another thing where I was like, oh no, it's fine, no one's gonna notice. But I notice, and I keep going back and forth about whether or not I want to frog it and redo it, but it's just like, this is my first hat, and I feel like sometimes you gotta accept the not so good pieces of the process and keep them so that way, you know, like I said with the Bolero, have it to look back on later on. And I'm sure you've noticed I have a lot of purple incorporated into my projects, and that's because back in, I want to say 2021, 2022, I had bought a bunch of purple yarn in hopes of making the Harry Styles color block cardigan. And I was following a pattern from Wool in the Gang. However, I gave up on the project. And so I've just been like frogging pieces of that cardigan and repurposing the yarn so as to not be wasteful. And also purple's my favorite color, so of course I'm gonna dedicate projects to it. I mean, come on now. Moving on. Next up, we have actually my very first ever project, which was this butterfly. I don't really remember the process of making this. I just know that this was my first time, you know, really trying to get used to working with the yarn and the hook, understanding the stitches. And this is something I keep on my shelf as a little knickknack because I do like butterflies. And so purple plus butterflies, it's very on brand for me. Alrighty, next up, following, I guess, in the steps of the Sandy Liang trend that I had brought up the scrunchie, I did crochet a bow with the intention of putting it on my bagu because Sandy Liang and Bagu did a collab and they had like bows tied on the bag, and I didn't want to buy another bagu, but I wanted to be a part of the Sandy Liang bagu party, so I had crocheted this. This was my first time sort of freehanding something, and honestly, you know, it wasn't bad, but I just wish I did things a little better. I mean, as you can see in the back, I sort of just crocheted a long rectangular piece for the bottom, crocheted another smaller rectangle and sort of attached them together at the back, and then I added a safety pin to be able to attach it onto the bag. And I just feel like I made the process a lot more complicated than what it needed to be. And so when I do eventually make more bows, I won't do it like this. But at the time, it was a good make. All right, so next up is this brown ruffle hat. Ruffle hats were what made me want to get into crochet to begin with, because I'd see folks on TikTok, Instagram wearing these, and I was like, ooh, I want one. And I had all this yarn lying around to begin with from my knitting days, so I figured, why not learn how to crochet so I can especially make hats like these. And so I have this brown one. I also have this black one, which, to be honest, I feel like it's one of my least favorite makes of this year, simply because I just feel like the ruffles were a bit too much, and when I put it on my head, it doesn't sit right. So I may end up frogging this hat and using the yarn to make a different ruffle of some sort. But also at the same time, there is memory attached to this hat. I call it the New York hat because I had made this en route to New York for the concert I mentioned previously. So, but also at the same time, why keep something if I know I'm not going to use it, you know? So, all right. And here's another hat I made. It's more of a wavier type of brim, which I really like a lot. This was an experiment because I saw the creator wear this on TikTok, and I wasn't really quite sure if I was going to like it, but I was very satisfied with how it came out. I like how it sits on my head. It's a very casual vibe. And I think I'm going to end up frogging the black hat to make something like this. Maybe, maybe. Next, I have a split two-tone beanie that I made for the colder months. It was my first time making a beanie. Actually, it's not technically my first time making a beanie. I knitted a beanie, but it was just weirdly shaped on my head and I never wore it out. And I'm pretty sure I cut it up somewhere to be frogged at a eventual time. But this is my first beanie that I'm proud of, first beanie that I've crocheted. The biggest struggle in this was measurements because I do have a larger size head than most. And so whenever I make hats, I do have to go an extra mile to calculate ways to make it fit my head better. And for this one, surprisingly, I made it too big. Well, not too big circumference-wise, but too long. And so when I put it over my head, it covers a lot of my face. And so I have to like bunch up the brim enough for it to look decent. And when I was sewing the hat together, I had not followed the tutorial very closely, and just the way that I stitched it, basically this side right here that you're seeing is supposed to be the inner part, if that makes sense. Like it's an inside out hat essentially, but no one knows that it's inside out when I wear it because I make sure to, you know, fake it till I make it. But overall, not too bad of a project. But if I were to do this again, I would make some tweaks. Up next is yet another hat. Hats were the main thing that I made this year simply because, like I mentioned, I have a big head. Hats really don't fit me that well. And so why not make my own? And this is pink. I had this pink yarn specifically because of the Barbie movie hype from this summer. And I don't know, pink has grown to become a second favorite color of mine after purple. And I really like this a lot. However, I don't know why at the top it does this little cone thing and it can be sort of wonky looking when I put it on my head. We're just gonna ignore the end sticking out. I don't weave in my ends. Like this hat right here, all these color changes, didn't weave in a single end. No, that's the beauty of making my own things, making things solely for myself, is that I have a bit more freedom to not be perfect with my things. Because I know if I were to be making these things for somebody else, I'd be stressing over every little thing. But no, I do whatever because it's me who's using it. I have the skill to fix it if something goes wrong, etc., etc. So yeah, here's the hat. It's a very cute summertime vibe. I originally made it thinking I was going to wear it the brim down a lot, but I honestly like it flipped up. Like, it looks cool. All right, so that was everything in the basket. So now I'm going to pull out the project that is currently in a separate bag from everything else for a very good reason. Alrighty. Oh, backwards. Alrighty, so this was a raglan top that I wanted to make inspired by the fall season, as that's my favorite season because that's my birthday season. But the thing is, I am like sensitive to one of the yarns used, and just that the texture of it is very rougher compared to the others. And so when it sits on my skin, even while I was working with it, it just made me feel very tingly and not in a good way. And I realized that after I made this. So imagine my face when I went through all this work to make this, only to find out I can't wear it. And, you know, I even tried washing it to see if that would help, but no, didn't work. So yeah, I just keep it in a bag because I really don't have it in me to frog it because I did a really good job at it for it being my first time making a raglan. And yeah, it would hurt a lot to take it apart. However, I don't know. Maybe if I were to make a raglan again, I would do a better job at the back here and came to like switching colors and not making it so all these weird gaps appear. And I've been meaning to make another raglan, but you know, after this, I've sort of been just a little hesitant to, because I don't want to find out that I'm possibly sensitive / allergic to another yarn in my stash and won't be able to wear it. So yeah, I honestly thought that after making this, I wouldn't be able to crochet ever again, because I thought that it was all the yarns making me sensitive, but I found that it was just that one particular yarn that I had issues with. Yeah, I'm gonna put this back in the bag because I can feel myself starting to feel itchy, and I don't want that. All right, everyone, those are all the makes that I had for this year. I wish I counted as I kept showing you all everything, but I know for a fact that I made 8 hats, and so 8 plus everything else should be like 12, 13 things, which is really good, especially because I started in May. And a couple of them were made while I've been working a full-time job. And so, yeah, I'm pretty proud of myself. If I were to, I guess, pick my favorites aside from this hat, it would be first this beret, especially because I feel like this really pushed me out of my comfort zone, because with making the bucket hats, it's pretty easy to modify the pattern to fit my head, but with this one, it took a bit more brain power, especially once you get to, I guess, this single crocheted brimming, because the hat needs to fit securely on the head. As with bucket hats, it really doesn't have that sort of a secure fit. I sort of just plop it on my head and it works. And so this took like a lot of frogging and a lot of mental math and watching the tutorial over and over to sort of project where I would need to either add a row or not add another row. And it all worked out in the end. A second favorite would be the sandy scrunchie, simply because it was a really good way for me to be introduced to different techniques to help my crochet projects later on. I don't remember what the techniques were off the top of my head, because I made this in end of August, start of September, but I remember like writing in my crochet journal, like, oh, this is new, I hadn't done this before. And yeah, I've been saying I want to make another one of these, but I just haven't really. We're gonna ignore that part, the stitching. This is the good side. But yeah, I hope to make another one of these eventually, because it's really cool, really great statement piece, well written pattern, great way to use up yarn. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope to, honestly, let me not say too much on my next upload, because who knows, I just might be somebody who posts once a month, and that be that. But crochet was a very fun thing for me this year. I'm very glad to have picked it up and experimented with different ways. It's definitely helps me express my creativity, and I look forward to making more things next year, and the year after that, and the year after that, and the year after that. Granted that my wrists don't give up on me, because they might if I keep crocheting and not stretching before, after, and during my projects. That'll be something I work on 2024 for sure. Yeah, so that's all. Thank you everyone for watching. Let me know in the comments what your favorite project was. I'm very curious to hear you all's thoughts, and even suggest things that you think I should try and make in 2024, because while I do have a Notion page full of different patterns, I'm always open to new things. So yeah, thank you.